Hi, Bernadette from California. Just going to wait another minute until we start introducing and start. Colleges are starting classes today online. My son's computer crashed on early already. Yep, that's a good diagnosis. They said that Dee says that they updated the operating system, which was not exactly, I guess they were trying to do it in anticipation of all the college starts. But Dee, what's your understanding of what happened?
Looks like Zoom updated their interface in the managing end of it, and especially in their browser version of the Zoom. It's morning. There's a bunch of problems signing in or even seeing any screen. But when I was able to log in, it was showing like a quite different interface in a better way. There's a few new functions as well. So maybe there's something when they're updating stuff. There's a bug or something didn't connect very well, but they look like they're fixing the backend very quickly. Hopefully it'll be resolved soon enough.
Awesome. So let's get started. It's noon here, and I'm here with Alexandra, and you've seen us present before together. And I want to tell everybody that I'm going to be on vacation for the rest of the week. So you're going to be with Alexandra tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday. And then Sarita will be here on Friday as your BSF co-host. And we're still in our back to school webinar series. And last Monday, Sarita and I had held space for conversation about the nitty gritty of what going back to school looks like. Thank you very much. And I'm going to see my parents in Florida. We're driving, my son and I. So anyway, last week we were talking about the nitty gritty and what we're dealing with, like right up in our face. And something that came out of that conversation to me, which was like tickling me all week and weekend, was the catalyst for this webinar, which is looking at COVID as a catalyst and looking at the opportunities that there might be for transforming public education. Like, not to get all stuck in how do we get it back to how it was, but to really think, like, what if this is an opportunity to be able to go totally different places that are better for the goals of public education. So that's what we're here to talk about today. We have some kind of provocative videos for you, and we have some kind of penetrating questions. We hope that the chat will be active, but we also, our goal here is not to say we agree with everything that's being said, but just to kind of get us all shaken loose from the ruts of thinking we may have about back to school. So that's where we are. Alex, do you want to take them through the ways to engage and the agreements?
Sure. Next slide, please, Dee. So, you know that we are in this virtual gathering. So we want you to, if you're not talking, to put your phone on mute. When you're ready to comment, you can raise your hand and you go to all participants and you'll see the ability to do that, as well as, and then we'll unmute you. Be patient with us. We try to get to as many people as we can in the chat. And then feel free to type your comments in the group chat. Just make sure again that it's saying it's going to all panelists and all attendees. Next slide. And so those of you who are familiar, you already know what's about to happen. And those of you who are new with us today, we have these agreements that we all agree to use when we're in our webinars. We're going to speak from our own experience and use I statements. We're going to follow the golden rule. We want to treat other people the way we want to be treated. And we want our full selves, our full presence in this webinar. So please, no multitasking. And if you agree, with some people have already started, they are already typing in the chat that they agree.
Awesome. That's the warm up. That's to get you warmed up for chatting. So, and that's also in recognition that we co-create this space, and especially on a day like today when there isn't a lot of content other than a couple of videos and a bunch of questions. So we really need all of you today, especially. Next slide, Dee. In the description of this webinar, we talked about using appreciative inquiry, and we're not going to be like really, this is the last time you'll probably hear me refer to appreciative inquiry, but this is the process in this webinar. This is the process that we at Be Strong Families use to evolve our organization and to work through anything that we're planning, because we believe that there's a positive core that gives life to things. And in the topic today is public education. So there's a positive core that gives life to public education, right? And when we're thinking about transformation, we want to build on the strengths. And appreciative inquiry is a very strengths-based method. So you start with discovering what gives life, the best that exists, like what's the best part about our public education system. And we appreciate that before we go on to dreaming what could be. What is the world asking us to do? What is the opportunity? How can we envision an end, goal, or envision a world that's even better than it is now? Like we're building on the strengths of what is, but we want to know what could be with relation to public education. And then the next two steps of the process are to get down to work. So doing the design, and we'll do a little design, a few design questions, which is co-creating, and it says manifesting the partnership, but we don't necessarily have control over the big public education system, but we may have some thoughts about how it could be designed, and we may have some action steps that we can take. And then the final stage of this process would be doing it. Delivery is also destiny. It's like whatever you're working on, you get to the place where you've discovered the best of what is, build on those strengths to create the dream, and then design what you want to happen and then deliver it. So appreciative inquiry is a whole world in itself, and I recommend it to everyone, and it's kind of what's underlying our process here. Next slide, Dee. So we're going to start with a question. And we have two questions aside, but we're going to only do the first question first. So I want to ask you, what were the best things about our public education system before COVID? And another way of approaching that is, what do we miss about our public education system before COVID? And you can think nationally or you can think locally, like what was the best thing about, dedicated, caring teachers, is what Deborah said. What are some other best things about our public education system?
Socialization of our children, definitely.
And I think social impact of our children.
Student interaction.
I think one of the great things about our public education system is that everybody's allowed to go to school, and we might take that for granted. But in other countries, some other countries, there's no compulsory education, and there's not even an offer of education to people depending on their resources,
So Letitia says, I enjoy the socialization with the teachers and families helping one another. Tiffany said, actually knowing the students are well and fed. And Tamara said, yes, it's free.
It's free, right. Awesome. What's the next question, Dee? Bring it up. So what problems with our public education system has COVID made clear? Has it surfaced or made worse? And the behind this is our understanding that a lot of what seems to be happening now in this transformation time of COVID is it's creating some new problems, but it's also just bringing to light the things that were already going on that were problematic for us as a society, right?
So Lori said, I think this is her answer to the first question. Our school has had so many programs to offer our students: CTE, fine arts, music, engineering. Our staff really reached out to our students to help them find their best fit. Deborah said, unequal access to resources, making sure that our children stay safe, the disparity of the differences that have and of the haves and have-nots as it pertains to resources, continuing education in a new way, and a socioeconomic gap for some students. Letitia said the food, like food and clothing, and needing someone to talk to.
Yeah, I think the disparities also, just that if you have the resources and your schedule is such that you can stay home with your kids and work and have a job, then remote learning is a stress and a pressure, but it may not be it's not impossible. And for some families, like essential workers, it's impossible, right? And then I don't know how many of you were on Nilofer Hassan's webinar last Friday, but I was really struck by what she was saying in Oakland, that the public schools can reopen when the COVID incidence is 200 per whatever, 100,000, when the curve is flattened to that point. But then she also said, like in Oakland, there were some places where it's 100 and there's some places where it's 3,500 per thousand. And the schools can open when there's an average, but it'll probably still be over the top in some areas of Oakland. And I think that that's an example of the disparities that our education system is not completely able to be there for all students equally.
Definitely.
And the safety issue is like what happens when you open school, but the kids that live in those neighborhoods cause more of a danger to other students and to the teachers than kids from another part of Oakland. And so that kind of feeds into prejudices, stereotypes, and all of those kinds of tropes.
Definitely. Tiffany, kid on what you talked about too, she says displaying the differences between affluent and poor districts. Elder said the fear and uncertainty. Lori brought up the non-English language learners can fall behind. Pamela says parents had to schedule and things are off the schedule. Now things are all off balance. Angela agreed with Lori. Tiffany said the outcomes would affect the students' ability to recover and keep up academically based on which district they attend, and kids with IEPs may fall behind.
Yeah, we've been talking about these issues. We talked some about them last week, and we've been talking about them in general. I want to move to a different kind of conversation, which is the next, I think, is a video that was actually made in 2016. So this is not COVID related. This is urging education reform 4 years before COVID hit. And I think it brings up some of the other problems with our education system that might be, while we're all taking a pause or in a transitional period, it might be a good time to start addressing them. So we'll play this video, which is spoken word. So it's kind of fun. It's about 6 minutes. So we'll play this, and then we have some questions that come directly out of this video. Do you have anything to say, Alexandra, before we start the video?
No, I actually just love this video. So I think you all enjoy, especially the people who love art that's with us today.
Albert Einstein once said, "Everybody's a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today on trial we have modern day schooling. Glad you could come. Not only does he make fish climb trees, but also makes them climb down and do a 10-mile run. Tell me, school, are you proud of the things you've done? Turning millions of people into robots, do you find that fun? Do you realize how many kids relate to that fish swimming upstream in class, never finding their gifts, thinking they are stupid, believing they are useless? Well, the time has come, no more excuses. I call school to the stand and accuse him of killing creativity, individuality, and being intellectually abusive. He's an ancient institution that has outlived his usage. So, Your Honor, this concludes my opening statement, and if I may present the evidence of my case, I will prove it.
Proceed.
Exhibit A. Here's a modern day phone. Recognize it? Here's a phone from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Stay with me. Here's a car from today. And here's a car from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Well, get this. Here's a classroom of today. And here's a class we used 150 years ago. Now, ain't that a shame? In literally more than a century, nothing has changed. Yet you claim to prepare students for the future? But with evidence like that, I must ask, do you prepare students for the future or the past? I did a background check on you and let the record show that you were made to train people to work in factories, which explains why you put students in straight rows, nice and neat, tell them sit still, raise your hand if you want to speak, give them a short break to eat, and for 8 hours a day, tell them what to think. Oh, and make them compete to get an A letter which determines product quality, hence grade A of meat. I get it. Back then, times were different. We all have a past. I myself am no Gandhi. But today, we don't need to make robot zombies. The world has progressed. And now we need people who think creatively, innovatively, critically, independently, with the ability to connect. See, every scientist will tell you that no two brains are the same. And every parent with 2 or more children will confirm that claim. So please explain why you treat students like cookie cutter frames or snapback hats, giving them this one-size-fits-all crap.
Watch your language.
Sorry, Your Honor, but if a doctor prescribed the exact same medicine to all of his patients, the results will be tragic. So many people would get sick, yet when it comes to school, this is exactly what happens, this educational malpractice, where one teacher stands in front of 20 kids, each one having different strengths, different needs, different gifts, different dreams, and you teach the same thing the same way? That's horrific. Ladies and gentlemen, the defendant should not be acquitted. This may be one of the worst criminal offenses ever to be committed. And let's mention the way you treat your employees.
Objection. Overruled. I want to hear this.
It's a shame. I mean, teachers have the most important job on the planet, yet they're underpaid? No wonder so many students are short-changed. Let's be honest. Teachers should earn just as much as doctors, because a doctor can do heart surgery and save the life of a kid, but a great teacher can reach the heart of that kid and allow him to truly live. See, teachers are heroes that often get blamed, but they're not the problem. They work in a system without many options or rights. Curriculums are created by policymakers, most of which have never taught a day in their life. Just obsessed with standardized tests. They think bubbling in a multiple choice question will determine success. That's outlandish. In fact, these tests are too crude to be used and should be abandoned, but don't take my word for it. Take Frederick J. Kelly, the man who invented standardized testing, who said, and I quote, "These tests are too crude to be used and should be abandoned." Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if we continue down this road, the results will be lethal. I don't have much faith in school, but I do have faith in people. And if we can customize healthcare, cars, and Facebook pages, then it is our duty to do the same for education, to upgrade it, change it, do away with school spirit, because that's useless. Unless we're working to bring the spirit out of each and every student, that should be our task. No more Common Core. Instead, let's reach the core of every heart in every class. Sure, math is important, but no more than art or dance. Let's give every gift an equal chance. I know this sounds like a dream, but countries like Finland are doing impressive things. They have shorter school days. Teachers make a decent wage. Homework is non-existent, and they focus on collaboration instead of competition. But here's the kicker, boys and girls. Their educational system outperforms every other country in the world. Other places like Singapore are succeeding rapidly. Schools like Montessori, programs like Khan Academy, there is no single solution. But let's get moving, because while students may be 20% of our population, they are 100% of our future. So let's attend to their dreams, and there's no telling what we can achieve. This is a world in which I believe, a world where fish are no longer forced to climb trees. I rest my case. Hey guys, my name is Prince EA, and I want to say thank you so much for watching my video. But now, I want to know what you think. How can we together create a more efficient, effective, and just better future of learning? I want you to visit nestday.com/preorder the future and
I don't care if you visit his website. So let's
Yeah.
live.
So So we have some great comments. Letitia says, so love this and so true. Our children are losing our creativity. I did this experiment and the kids were asked where about batteries. It doesn't plug in. They want things to start right now. So about learning patience that they've lost. They lost their creativity, and that's why we promote creativity all the way. Love this. Amen. What is the title of this video again? Please. I'm so into art. I so love this. Angelina said that, oh my God, this is deeper than Chicago style deep dish pizza. Can you share the link? Awesome. Yvonne said, wow. Tisha, yes, yes. Elder said, this was so moving and so deep. Tracy said, I'm speechless. Brianna said, so inspiring. Cindy said, I love Prince EA. I follow him on Facebook. Kayla said, great video. Can you add the link? We'll make sure to do that. Veronica said, wow, this needs to be shared. Ann said, it's quite moving. Loved it. Got to work together for a change now. Bernadette said, wow. Lori said, very cool. I'm familiar with both the Montessori as this is where my daughter with Down syndrome learned to read by age 6. And Khan Academy is a great resource that used virtual learning before COVID. Tiffany said, this is very comprehensive and touched so many issues. And Anna said, it's so true.
And I
Thank you,
remember Deborah
everyone.
last week was talking about also about creativity and how she didn't ever know, and this stuck with me, Deborah Cooper said she didn't know any child that wasn't willing to learn. It was just until they had it like kind of tamped out of them by the education system that human beings are born wanting to learn. It's adaptive, you know? So, okay,
And
good. So now, Deborah, you're getting to the next question. Please advance the slide, Dee.
Albert.
I wanted people to see the questions. So these two questions, look at these together. And these are the same questions that Prince EA said. How can we together create a more efficient, effective, and just better future of learning? And how can we update the classroom? So what would that look like? And Deborah started by saying, I'd love to see grade levels by age done away with and focus more on the individual needs and allow children to have lessons tailored to their skill level, even varying from subject to subject. And Deborah, I'm with you there because I remember back, and this is like dark ages, right? Because I'm pretty old, but we had self-paced learning, and it was specifically for, I think it was, my problem with public education is like the kids who get labeled smart kids early on have a totally different education than the kids who are not labeled that way. And I say that because I was labeled a smart kid. And so I was able to move at my own pace. Teachers always cared what I wanted to learn. They taught me to think critically. I had social studies classes where we read different points of view on the same issue. And then one time it didn't fit into my schedule in high school and I had to go to a regular class. And in the regular class, it was just memorize this name, this date, this war. You know, it was like, I couldn't even bear it. But I think the problem is not that it doesn't exist. It's that we don't allow all students to be educated that way. It's where I'm saying about like sharing privilege.
So Katthe, I also think too, just to your point, that it doesn't, those type of who's labeled, they don't account for how kids learn and the different learning styles. Exactly.
And also like now, this is what Tammy's saying, what Deborah's saying. We have so much more information now than when I was young about different types of intelligence and different ways that kids learn. So they're really, and that was in the video as well. There are so many different ways we could engage kids in learning depending on how they learn best. And I think we haven't explored enough how to do that. We've assumed that it's too difficult.
Exactly. Tamara says, focusing on nurturing children's strength rather than pushing the subjects they are not good at or nor interested in. And Angela said, yes, we have to talk with the school, the teachers, the counselor, and the principal about the very thing with her son, whom they labeled as busy, but he was actually bored, now in his last year of college and speaks Spanish and French fluently.
Yeah, and the other thing is like I remember when my son was in school, like he's a boy, right? And they used to punish them when they wouldn't behave by either withholding lunch or not letting them have recess, which to me is the exact opposite of what they should have done. He had too much energy. He needed to be told to run around, the track. They needed more recess in order to be able to learn. And that's like kind of like we don't, we force them, what Princier was saying, sit in your chair, and pay attention and be quiet and raise your hand if you want to speak. Well, yeah, it's important to learn to be disciplined and self-control. And I think karate is a good example of where kids can learn that kind of self-discipline and self-control. But it's also that we need to make the educational experience connect with the developmental stage and the body, mind, and spirit needs of a child. You can't bash them emotionally and straitjacket them physically and then say you're not learning, you know?
Definitely. Lori said, yes, self-paced works really. That's exactly how the Montessori classroom is set up. Lessons can be easily added for those kids who work faster or split into more steps for those who need extra time. Lessons are more concrete and kinesthetic. And oh, it is also easy to accommodate, include all different types of learners. And Yvonne said that being an active parent and an active parent to teach parents to be a great part of their kids' learning, working together with sports and teachers and parents as a team, it truly pays off. And Andrea says, all children have the desire to learn and excel. The issue is that putting 20 to 30 kids in a class, you begin to see them in a ranking order. Those who fall below the average see themselves as such and continue those patterns. It is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think it's more important to work from the strength of each individual and work toward mastering their limitations from there. I so agree with that.
Wow.
I so agree with that. I have twins and they're identical twins and everybody's like, oh, they're alike. They are vastly different. The only thing is alike is that they look alike and they don't even look alike to me. I can tell the difference, but one is more academic focused and one is more hands-on artistic, and you can just see the difference in their learning styles and what, sparks their passion. So definitely agree with that statement.
And then the other thing about it is the preparing for the future and the world the way it is, and not preparing for the past or like, even the school schedule. I know this is changing now, but the school schedule built around agrarian society, because kids were needed in the summer to be able to work on the farms, or the bells and the like preparing kids to work in the factory by having shift change, bell change, class change, just, and if we really think about like what are the skills that are needed going forward, and what are how, and then like collaboration instead of competition, teamwork, how to get along with others, that we know that for preschool, that social emotional piece is the foundation for any learning. So, but that's also probably true as you get older, and that we need to attend to the social emotional piece of learning,
Definitely. Angela said, wow, is right. The attendees are on it. Tamara said, I'm so interested in seeing a level of mastery students will achieve if allowed to work on what they love instead of sending out a bunch of jack of all trades into the world. And Deborah said, yes, we did our homeschool year round so my daughter will have less losses in learning.
So what's the next question, Dee?
So is this, yep.
So this question, maybe, I don't know, what new things are happening now as a result of COVID that weren't happening before, but that you hope will continue? So this is us looking at the bright spots. Like, I think, like, for example, I think there's much more attention to teaching and teachers right now. Like, I think there's a lot more compassion on the part of parents for teachers. I know some parents were very understanding of the job of a teacher before, but I think now there's a lot of like, oh my gosh, wow, teachers do a lot. And I think there's also, more recognition on the part of teachers for parents,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Teachers that are,
Oh, go on. Go on.
okay. Yep. Training on the job. And she was responding to our other question. And then Letitia said, I remind our children that they have a voice and they do make a difference. And once we figure out that all children and adults learn differently, we will have more students like education. Sorry. Tracy said parents more involvement in the education process and learning. Tamara agreed. School systems are being forced to adapt to the needs of all, that they are a part of the learning cycle. A push for more strategic family engagement and contact. And parents as a whole are so appreciative of teachers. We're creating more ways to reach out to parents as partners. And then Adrian said, I think everyone should take a step back and really take a moment to slow down, think outside of the box. We all had to adapt to this pandemic. I also think that having a lot that I also think that after being in the role a lot of educating our children remotely, teachers are being much more appreciative. I still agree.
And I like that, Andrea. I love that you said that everyone is taking a step back, because I think there is, and that's why I think we did this webinar, because there is a time to take a step back and reflect on what do we want to have happen. I think another thing that's happening now that we need to figure out, and I'm not saying it's happening perfectly, but just like Lori said that the Khan Academy was doing virtual online remote learning before the pandemic, and that it is self-paced and that there's a lot of resources out there. I think, the idea of being able to do some of the learning remotely, and the idea of ratcheting up the technological components of our learning are things that are happening now that will probably need to continue.
I think another thing is what to that point that's happening. There were some schools in the same district, at least here in Virginia, where they were either providing the kids with MacBooks or providing them with Google Chromes, but it wasn't across the board. And so then the pandemic forced it to be so, which, shortened the technology divide. So that's one of the things that I think happen and should like maintain. And then what about when kids are sick, but they don't feel sick, and then they could participate still in school and
Well,
not have that gap in learning.
and that whole push to get Chromebooks out to everybody, like the recognition, I mean, that should have happened before, right? Like privileged kids or kids at a certain income level, had technology at home, and then other kids didn't, but we assumed that they didn't need it because they were getting educated in school. Now we know everybody needs technology at home, you know?
Exactly.
I
And
love what
so,
Angela says about pay the teachers well, and we'll see them rise to the level of what's needed to help all students succeed. And when Prince EA was saying doctors, can save a life, but teachers can, can put the heart in learning. I was also thinking, and teachers teach doctors. So,
right, I thought the same thing. Like,
I mean,
exactly.
and it's not even just like in med school. I'm talking about like preschool teachers, preschool teachers and what they do, they are the ones that light the spark for someone to think that they can become a doctor. Teachers all the way along the line are creating.
I have more preschool memories, and then I have like a gap, and then it goes to like middle school and high school. But I never forget my preschool experiences, which is why it's so powerful and so important, which the research shows, right? Anna said different agencies working together to help families. Yvonne agreed, and then say yes, we should. Here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, the school districts are putting buses in certain neighborhoods where the internet service is lacking. Oh, that's innovative. That's very innovative, because we're having issues in Virginia with, connectivity, because it's not just the urban technology divide, it's also the rural technology divide. And sometimes there's not enough connectivity. And so that's a great idea. I hope they can use that here.
Yeah.
Mobile hotspots on the buses. Oh, that's excellent.
And I think another thing that's happened is I remember like that, I don't know, you hear a lot of kids saying they hate school, they don't want to go to school, like, school sucks, etc. And now I think it's a little ironic because all the kids are like, I want to go to school. I want to go to school.
I
Like,
mean,
go back
overload.
to school. So it's like, that's also something that's happening now that I hope, the appreciation for school on the part
Yeah.
of students is also, I think, something that's,
And it speaks to the protective factors, right? The importance of social connections. Because when I ask my twins, they don't really want to go back to school per se for the learning part, some of that, but it's more about, I want to be around other kids. I want to go outside. I want to play. I want to, so it's all the social aspects.
yeah, well, we're going to get that question a little later but let's move on, okay? to the next slide because I want to make sure we can get to the whole. Okay, so I want to prep you for this before we just throw you with Gary Vaynerchuk. Okay, I don't know if any of you know him. But the question I want you to be thinking about is why do kids want to go back to school? That's where Alexandra was. And how does your child enjoy learning? Like, how do they enjoy learning? But this video, and again, this was before, he's very famous. He's an entrepreneur that has made a ton of money, and he's very critical of the education system. So again, not that you necessarily or we necessarily believe everything that he says is, doesn't jive with, but I thought it was extremely provocative and a point of view that we hadn't presented here before. So these contexts are all about like different ideas, holding face for different ideas. So let's hear Gary.
The school system here, I'm not sure about America, but it's outdated.
It's outdated globally.
It's outdated globally.
The internet made it outdated because information is a commodity and the school system was built on memorization of information. Why do I have to do any math? I have a calculator on my iPhone that can give you any math.
Yeah.
I don't need to know anything. I can ask Siri and Alexa in 2 seconds, they'll give me the answer. Who cares about the periodic table when I can tell you what, it's so uncomfortably outdated globally because it's predicated on memorization of information in a world where we have information at our fingertip within a second for zero cost. The whole thing's dead.
How do we fix it?
It's parents' responsibility. It's the parents' responsibility to not buy into the self-esteem wrapped up in your child going to a top university. We don't need to boil the ocean. Parents need to make sure their kids are happy. If we all collectively actually gave a crap about the happiness of our children, it would fix itself. Unfortunately, we care more about the judgment of our contemporaries about what our children are accomplishing more than caring about our children. This is an issue of modern day parenting and insecurity and keeping up with the Joneses, not a school system problem.
Caring what other people think.
It is the devastation of our society.
Yeah, because so many people watching this will be like, no, you need a university degree. You need that to fall back on.
Fall back on what?
Yeah.
Every company's not requiring a degree to get hired anyway. The greatest companies in the world, Amazon, Google, are no longer requiring a degree anyway. So what are you falling back on? Now, that's like saying you need to keep a horse on hand in case the car doesn't work. It's ludicrous.
It is ludicrous.
It is ludicrous.
Yeah.
And it's completely predicated on the framework that the parent grew up with, and more importantly, the judgment that their parents are putting on them or how they want to keep up with everybody else. Because the people that they eat dinner with at the country club on Sunday night, their daughter's going to the big university and it's just ludicrous. It is sad. I'm a byproduct of parents that were strong enough to not care about what other people thought, which is why I'm happy. And I would like to use what the gift my parents gave to me as something that I communicate to the world, hopefully inspiring one parent to give that gift to their child.
Yeah, what do you say to that entrepreneur, that young entrepreneur at school, hating school, wanting to leave school, but has to stay at school? What do you say to them?
Enjoy the vacation, because you're gonna work the rest of your life. 2, don't be a hypocrite. If you're such a tough guy or gal, stop taking mommy and daddy's money. If you're such an entrepreneur, go buy your own iPhone. Start practicing now. The quicker a child gets off a parent's payroll, the more likely they will be happy in life.
So.
Very provocative.
Provocative.
So Santa Fe had an amazing liberal arts college that put math and science into each class, so the students did not need to take 2 years of basics before starting on their chosen major. It made sense, but it was difficult for parents to grasp. They wanted to know about the math and history classes that their kids should be taking. Interesting. Very similarly, I ended up attending Howard University, but I was gonna go to Sarah Lawrence because of my poetry and literature stuff, and they didn't have grades. You get a paper, and that kind of freaked my parents out when we were there for the interview. It was like, what do you mean you don't get grades? What is a letter? What is this? You know, what do you mean this is how you track their work? Which I thought was fascinating. But I think it's a different way of, to me, it's, again, I can only think about co-creation, Katthe. Like when I think about it, listening to that again, and then listening to what Lori's saying and what I just added, is about co-creating with the students. And people know what they need. People know what their strengths are and what their challenges are. So it'd be very interesting if we had a different way to track the progress of our kids' learning.
Yeah, and like it's very challenging for me because I do think that education is important. I think that there's benefits to, I mean, I think there's benefits to learning how to learn something. You know, I think there's benefits to learning how to research something. I think there's benefits to learning how to get along with others and to not having everything go your way. And like when I think of these questions, like why do our kids want to go back to school? I know some people are saying that they're really missing team sports. You know, they're really missing not just, you know, talking to their being with their friends, but also like just team sports. And when I think back, I was a swimmer, a competitive swimmer in high school. And geez, you know, that wasn't all like, you know, social interaction. We had a coach, you know, and the coach was really hard. Get the lead out. What do you think this is? A pool party? You know, come on, kids. I don't care if your eyes hurt. I just want you to, like, he was rough, you know. But the thing is, I tested myself. I went beyond my limits. I learned about what I had in me, you know, and what I could do. And I think some of that challenge, it's not just all about, you know, fun and games all the time. Learning is hard sometimes. And so I think, I don't know. I mean, I think structure is, that we've all heard structure is important. You know, I think adults have a role in bringing up the next generation and nourishing them. But I think what we were talking about earlier, the part I resonated with was when he said, information, like information based on memorization, information is available. It's like, I don't have to know exactly how my light works, or, you know, I don't have to, because I don't have to wire that. There's electricians who do that. They have to know though. So somebody has to know the periodic table of the elements.
Right.
The chemist, but maybe not everybody has to know it or memorize it, you know? And like, how do we prepare kids for the future, which is more about like what Prince EA was saying about Finland, you know, with collaboration, not competition, and different skills. So
What do you think in the chat?
yeah, what are you thinking about why kids want to go back to school? What did children, and how does your child enjoy learning? You said your kids enjoy learning in two different ways, right, Alexandra?
Yeah, one of them is very much, she would not be with not going to school or grades. She wants her grades. She works hard for her grades and she enjoys it. Like she loves researching. My other daughter is just an artist, the other twin, blood to bone, and she would prefer to learn by doing versus reading. So it's interesting. I watch them bounce off of each other's skill sets to help each other so they both make good grades. But she needs to like say it and learn it and feel it. She has a lot of emotional intelligence. So Tiffany said the video is interesting, but it's difficult not to push education because we're in a system with so much weight is into credentials and higher education, even when someone's creativity may be natural and not necessarily backed by a degree. To see and play with their friends, Elder said. Yeah, I think it's a balance between the two. Tiffany, I do think like, you know, like the field that we're in or other fields, maybe like not Google, etc. But there are some fields where you would still need an education. So that part I definitely didn't agree with. But I think what he highlighted, there are some kids who are just born entrepreneurs. And, you know, he said still stay in school, but then if you're going to be an entrepreneur, then be ready for that because nothing is easy. Discipline and work is anything, you know, anything you want to accomplish. Andrea said, I know my school age kids just really wanted to go back to their routines and to be able to socialize. There's so much virtual socialization. There's only so much that virtual socialization can do for you. I agree. You're always learning, but they're missing out on a lot of aspects of attending school.
Yeah, I think that the other thing, when I look back to our previous question, that virtual socialization, I wonder if it's going to change how much kids are on their phone after COVID. You know what I mean? Because like there are those memes that were going around about how, kids can be at the table, dinner table with their friends, and they'll still be on their phone, like on Facebook or playing Pokemon Go or whatever. So I wonder how that dynamic changes when, in this
It
situation.
well, it's already happened. My kids are like that, and they're like, "Mommy, can we do something else? Let's paint, let's draw, let's do something. Let's go bike ride. I'm sick of my phone." Like they are, like I'm sick of the phone. I don't want to be on the phone. I want to do something else. So that's a good. I mean, another earlier question. I think that's a good side effect. Tamara said, "I agree that all the information is at our fingertips, but I still think school helps with motivation. If kids don't really want to know or do not know they want to know, they aren't going to seek out the info." Very true. It also helps to have someone there to expand on, explain, and ask motivating questions. Totally agree. It's difficult to collaborate online, like a band is tough to do. Plus, it would be more difficulty for teachers to get to know the students like they do in school.
Yeah. But there's probably hybrid models that could emerge, where where there's some in class time, and then there's, more time, especially as you get older, more time to do things in teams or do things, on your own. And then also, I think the one-on-one check-ins with students, could, if you free up it's just like with virtual, for me, there's a lot in common with virtual work. Like when I used to back in the day go to an office and clock in and clock out and spend 8 hours there, there was a lot of time. I don't think it was as productive as when I'm working at home, because there was a lot of time, like when you're tired and you're working at home, you can just kind of go do something else or take a nap or something like that, and get at it when you have the energy for it. And I end up working the same amount, but I think I'm more productive and it works with my rhythms better. So I think that there's a lot of time in school that's not really spent learning. And let's also remember that there's a lot of bullying that happens at school too. And it's not all, on the educators. It's like there's a lot of social dynamics at school that are really not so positive for kids. And they're being kind of socialized to be in this very competitive situation, arguably, with survival of the fittest kind of thing. And if you happen to be one of those kids that, and this has happened to friends of mine and relatives, that somehow becomes the lightning rod for other kids, like to be mean, like the whole mean girls thing is real too. And I'm not sure.
Exactly. Exactly. Tamara says she agrees with Lori. It's all those moments in between that you really get to know each other. Yeah, I agree. It's certain kinds of ways, like certain things won't be able to happen. I have a nephew that's struggling because it's his senior year and he was set to play basketball and they're getting together, but it's not the same.
Yeah. And the thing is, I mean, I do believe that at least where we are right now, that getting an education is better than not getting an education, and that you develop self-confidence and self-esteem. And I think there's a certain amount of like privilege in this video also, like the parents at the country club. Well, if you're not in that situation, if you're just trying to get your kid out of poverty, education is a good way of doing that. It's like the only
Exactly.
channel to doing that. So I think it's a little bit from a perspective of privilege, white privilege, that isn't like what a lot of people's lives are,
Lori says she totally agrees, Katthe, about the productivity and the bullying. There are so many pulses.
buses. Yeah. So let's go.
Uh,
I'm afraid we're gonna run out of time. And I have one more video that I want to get to. Um, so I think this is just a brainstorming a little bit. What do we want school to accomplish for our children? And when I thought about that question, I thought about these answers. I want school to teach them how to deal with challenges and adversity. I want them to be challenged and to have to struggle and come through it. I want tutoring and support for them, each child to reach their potential and prepare them for their future in a positive way, and not to kill their desire to learn or kill their sense of self-esteem. I want them to experience positive community and collaboration and teamwork and people people supporting them and community with friends and sports. That's community's huge. And finally, I want equity, which is I want every child that goes to school to have the experience that I think sometimes is reserved for students of wealth or privilege. So those are the things I want school to accomplish for all of our children. And I wonder if there are other things that I missed or that you want for your, for our children. And when I say our children, I'm not just thinking my children or my grandchildren. I'm thinking of like all of our children in the US. Like what do we want school to do for them?
So Ann says she couldn't have said it better. Thank you. Yvonne said yes. I think I would just add a little sub bullet on to teach them how to deal with challenges because, there are teachers who are bullies sometimes. And my daughters were bullied in elementary school. And the first time I saved them. And then the second time, no, I think when you get the kind of mean teacher, it teaches you how to deal with difficult people. Like you can't run, you have to adjust and strategize. And I think that's a great lesson. And in this field, I see a lot of times when people encounter people it's not comfortable for them, they clinch up because they haven't had to practice. Like everybody's not gonna have your same style, but how do you adapt to their style and vice versa? Because it may be something you need that you won't get just because, I don't like the way they said it. And so I think the difficult school teaches them how to deal with difficult people, not just teachers, but just people in general, and how to be diverse in their thinking and their behavior.
Life skills, yeah.
Yeah, totally life skills. So Lori says, I want my children to learn to become confident, independent people who have a sense of direction. They may not know exactly where they will end up, but they know where and how to begin the journey. They can deal with obstacles and keep their true goal. Well said. Yvonne said, I had to adjust with this online stuff. I know. It's going to be interesting because now, they weren't getting graded in Virginia before, but this time they're actually getting graded. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out next week with the online school, because we're totally still online in the district my daughters will be going to. Some places have hybrids. Imani said, I want school to help inspire their curiosity and confidence in their strengths and gifts.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that would be awesome. What else do we want school to do?
I want my children to give back to others, but be true to themselves and to realize they can do anything they choose to do, or just by believing in yourself.
Yeah.
Anything they choose to do or be just by believing in yourself, definitely. Anything else?
Let's go to the next slide because I think we have one more video. Oh, well, we've been working on this the whole time. So I'm going to skip this slide because we've been working this the whole time. How would we transform? Anything else wait a second, see, anything else you think of and you want to put in the chat about how school should be different? How would you, if you had a magic wand, how would you transform public education? What would be the things that you would do? Think about that and put them in the chat or get ready to raise your hand after this video. And in this question that is motivating this video, it's what do young people want? So now, Dee, can you play the video?
The world is going through this profound change. It's a game defined by change. That's where value is from. It's no longer efficiency and repetition, assembly lines, law firms. So the new inequality in the world is between the people who are in the new game and the people who are out. And that's what's dividing the world. We have to have young people playing a major role in the leadership of that transition.
Ashoka Young Changemakers is a community of teen changemakers who have created change in their own communities, in their own world.
The importance of young people as change makers. It starts, of course, with them, but the ripple effect is profound.
It is not enough to have just very few change makers. They want to influence other young people, other stakeholders of the society. Ashoka Young Changemakers are co-leaders in Everyone a Changemaker movement, and I think they are the chief agents of shaping this ecosystem where every young person grows up to become a change maker.
You know, the issue is much greater than we even thought.
Over $1 trillion of aid has gone to Africa from the Western world, and still we are faced with the same problems stemming from extreme poverty.
Oftentimes we are unwilling to listen to the wisdom of youth because it challenges some of our own assumptions about choices that we have made and institutions that we have helped build and in some cases tear down. So I think it may take more courage than we actually believe to listen to young people, but we must.
We are tackling the systemic issues, but we're also creating long-term change by empowering this next generation to become the leaders their communities need.
And it's also about making being a change maker the status quo.
I think the world would be an amazing place if everyone was a change maker. I mean, we wouldn't have nearly as many of the problems as we do today.
Because if everyone was a change maker, if everyone was super dedicated to one issue and went beyond tweeting and posting about it, but went into making an impact, then our world would be a much better place.
The power is yours.
The power is yours.
The power is yours to change your world.
To change
your world.
That is so inspiring. Angela said, change the time of some school hours. I believe when I was in school, it started at 9 a.m.
So what do you think of that, about the idea of everybody a change maker? Letitia says, I think this COVID has taught us all, including myself, that we have found strength that we didn't know we had. We learned to make electronics work in a way we never knew they could before. We've come together, young and old. It's nice to see the youth of today, but the future of tomorrow, to make the world work for us by making that change. And Tammy says, yes, listen to the young people. They're destined to be smarter than we are, and that's what I want. And Angela, yes. I have 3 children, 28, 25, and 22. Mine at least want to be heard, given the opportunity to lead and to explore. They want to make the better place. Yvonne says they want to make the world a better place, power, and be heard. And Anne says, absolutely, young people do need to be heard. They are our youth who will one day be our leaders. Thoughts promote change. And I loved it when I don't know whether you noticed, I've watched this video a lot of times, but there was a woman there who was the head of the who was involved with the American Federation of Teachers. And she was saying, we need to listen to young people. And it might be hard for us to do that because they're going to be critical. They're going to be critical of the world that they're finding. And they're going to be blaming us that it's our fault. Like, why did we think it was a good idea for everyone to have a car? Why did we think it was a good idea to totally pollute the environment? Like, Greta Thunberg and climate change. Like, they're going to be angry about the world that they're inheriting, and they're going to, and it might be difficult to listen to, but it is the world that they are inheriting, and they are going to need to make things better.
Yep, Bernadette said they want to be heard and a better world for them. Andrea said, I think it's a great concept to empower. Let's move it fast. I think it's a great concept. I think it makes sense to empower our young ones to make changes happen now that will positively impact their futures. It's true, though. I encourage and appreciate them questioning us and our choices. Yes, Tamara. Lori says, working in a group, you discover so many creative solutions. Hopefully this time will give those quieter kids a chance to contribute their ideas. That's interesting. I think that may happen with the virtual learning because it's not as all eyes on me because you have chats and other functions. I haven't thought about that. That's a good idea or a good theory, Lori.
I think Lori, it speaks also to the underlying competitive vibe in school that might be able to be quieted if we had a more cooperative and collaborative and less competitive. So competitive socially, competitive, academically. And when you talk to kids like about the pressure that they feel, in school, I think that doesn't necessarily contribute to learning. We're seeing off the charts anxiety and depression, and that's not totally because of COVID. That was true before COVID.
Yes, the society and the generation they're growing up in. Exactly.
So awesome. We need to get to the next slide, Dee, because we're here. And I want to leave you with this, or we want to leave you with this quote, which is Howard Thurman. He said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." So I just thought that was a wonderful way to think about transforming education, to be able to have everyone, all of our kids and all of adults, be as alive as they can be. Vitality is the Be Strong Values value. So I want to thank you for being here. Alex, do you have any last thoughts?
No, just thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. I always enjoy. I look forward to those of you who attend every day, as I will be standing in for the marvelous Katthe. So we'll have some great presentations, and she's going to share with us what's coming up.
You fill out the poll as you're leaving. But this week, you had this for us, and we're looking at, so it is really mixing it up. Sometimes we have like didactic presentations where there's a lot of content and tools that you can give. And sometimes we just want to talk and open up the conversation. So thank you for being here for this conversation. And
we have a hand, Katthe. I know we're running close, but we do have a hand from Jesse that we didn't acknowledge.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that.
Me neither. I'm sorry, Jesse. Really quickly, Jesse. You have to unmute yourself. Okay, well, she's not there.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say tomorrow, Samantha Peterson, who's a VSF board member, will be here, and Alexandra will be the co-host. And she's going to be talking about remote learning teacher challenges and how to provide hands-on learning remotely. And then Phyllis will be here on Wednesday, continuing the conversation around psychological dimensions of kids' engagement with online and hybrid learning. So basically, how do we and this week, I think she's moving more towards the strength piece, is like, how do we deal with the feelings they're having and how do we make things better for them? And then Tracy's here on Thursday with Teachers Tricks for Parents. How to Friday, Merlindo Sue, who's in Chicago Public Schools, is going to be talking about parent engagement during the pandemic. Certificates are available. And Dee has posted where you would need to send an email if you want a certificate. And we encourage you to come back. And then again, this is by the community for the community. So if you have a conversation you'd like, oh, we're going to have the amplify slide next, Dee. We got to get out. We got to get it going. So don't forget to amplify. More perfect union. Amplify. What
Hashtag.
Hashtag amplify. Amplify everyone learning. Amplify public education. Amplify what?
Collaboration. Amplify creative school systems.
Yes. Amplify. Be sure to amplify. Okay. And then the next one is just, if you have a topic you'd like to discuss, or you have something that you think that the community needs to learn from, you have gifts and talents and you want to do a presentation, Amplify Hope. Thank you, Tammy. Just shoot me an email and we'll talk. Thank you, Yolanda.
Thank you.
Amplify Teachers Rock. Amplify School System and Learning. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's 1:02. We got to turn it over to the Spanish. Amplify Education. Yes. And
bye, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Dee.
Thank you.